Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another wrestling review. So, even though this year's Survivor Series has come and gone, I do still have a couple more Survivor Series reviews that I want to do before the month is out. So, we are going to finish those up this week, and this is going to be the first of the last two that I have for the week and for the month, that is. This match that we're about to talk about is a match that needs no real introduction. And a lot of history with this match. A lot of historical significance when it comes to this match. It's a match that kickstarted an era, kickstarted a character, and kickstarted some bitter feelings, and exacerbated some feelings that were already there. I figured, with me doing wrestling reviews here on my channel, it would be only a matter of time before I talked about this match. So, here we are talking about this match, and also right off the bat, this match and then the next Survivor Series review are going to be kind of connected. But as for this one, on its time, we delved into it and see what happened here. I'm of course talking about Bret the Hitman Hart defending his WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 1997, aka the Montreal Screwjob. So, as always, I'm not not professional wrestling reviewer, analyst, or anything like that. Just a man who enjoys a good time, and I had an okay time with this match. The thing is, this match, as I mentioned, has a lot of historical significance. But as a match, I thought it was just it was decent for the most part. Alright, so without further ado, let's get right into it. For those of you who've seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of know how this works. But for those of you who haven't, I'm going to be talking about what I liked and what I disliked about the match. And, of course, with the Montreal Screwjob, we will definitely discuss that. And I feel like the Montreal Screwjob, its implications, and its history, and the historical significance it adds to this match is kind of the gray area. And that's something I've mentioned a few times throughout certain match reviews, where certain parts have kind of a gray area, stuff that's enjoyable, but not enjoyable at the same time. And Montreal Screwjob, what happened there, definitely is one of those things. But as for just as a match itself, we're going to talk about what I liked and what I disliked. Starting with what I liked, Bret and Shawn definitely did go after each other. Of course, Bret and Shawn, very famous rivalry both inside and outside the ring. These are two men who couldn't stand each other, and honestly, what happened with this match, really, he just made things worse. Bret and Shawn, they might not have been able to stand each other, but man, did they put on some good matches. This one was pretty solid, and you could really feel the hatred and vitriol that both these men had for each other, at least from a kayfabe sense, and I'm sure from a real life stance as well, but definitely in a kayfabe sense, them constantly going after each other. They even brawl before the match begins, and even before the match begins, the bell's rung. They brawl. They actually brawl for a while, all through the crowd, all throughout, and they definitely. They definitely big fight feel. Definitely when it comes to that match. I know big fight feel is kind of more of a modern trope, especially on commentary, but definitely here, definitely has that big fight energy to it as they go after each other. Bret going after Shawn's leg, including the figure four over the turnbuckle, which Bret did pretty often, of course. And meanwhile, Shawn able to use some of his high flying and agility, really just able to really work each other. And like I said, even though they didn't like each other, they couldn't stand each other. Really able to work each other and able to produce some solid moments. And on paper, had history not gone down the way that it did, Shawn beating Bret with his own move, the sharpshooter, would have been an interesting move. Stolen finishers, there's like people stealing each other's finishers. It's been around for a while, but you definitely also do who kind of see that as kind of a modern trope. But here, like if Shawn had locked in the sharpshooter, and either the match truly had ended there and not in the way that it did, but of course we'll get to that. If it had ended right there, or if it was locked in, but Bret had powered out of it and stuff, that would definitely be an interesting and major moment, because it's something that wasn't quite done as often back then. And Shawn's sharpshooter, I've seen worse, but of course Bret's still the master of the sharpshooter, obviously. But so those I think do give it extra points besides just this historical significance. And it's like as a match itself in those regards, it's not bad. But in terms of what I disliked, I do wish we got a little bit more offense in when it came to Shawn Michaels. I think Bret got a majority of the offense and perhaps a little bit too much when it comes to offense. I wish Shawn got a little bit more, and the brawling taking up almost like half of the match almost. Might not necessarily be people's cup of tea, but yeah. So as a match, it's okay for the most part. It's not a match of the year candidate, and without the historical significance, it's not really a match of the year candidate. It's just kind of okay. But of course, we do have to talk about the historical significance of the Montreal Screwjob. So what happened? So when Shawn Michaels locked in the sharpshooter, Vince McMahon called for the bell. We actually saw Vince McMahon like out there earlier, as they were brawling. Bret kind of got in Vince's face, at least in kayfabe. But yeah. So as Shawn had the sharpshooter locked in, and Vince McMahon called for the bell. The bell rang. Shawn Michaels won, even though Bret Hart did not tap, and it caused a whole lot of controversy. Bret was upset, spit at Vince McMahon, wrote WCW in the sky. I tore apart her pretty much actually everywhere, her throwing monitors, stuff like that. Granted, a lot of that got cut from the network. Like as soon as that happened, they just cut the feed and everything. And like, thank you for joining us for Survivor Series, bye. But Bret absolutely went off. The crowd was pretty upset. Shawn Michaels got out of there, and it was a massive situation. And Bret Hart essentially got screwed out of the title. So, but you may be asking, Nigel, why did that happen? I'm glad I asked. So Bret Hart was on his way to WCW, and this was for a couple things. For starters, they offered him a major deal, and Vince McMahon let Bret Hart know that the multi-year deal that was supposed to be paid a lot of money for Bret to stay with the WWF, Vince said he couldn't honor the deal. Vince was up front saying, we can't honor the deal. So Bret instead signed with WCW, and I believe this was his kind of, I think technically his second to last night in the company, at least in terms of a match. So what was going to happen originally the plan was, and what Bret Hart agreed upon was that he would beat Shawn Michaels here. He didn't want to lose in his home country. He of course, not really hometown. This is taking place in Montreal, and Bret Hart is from Calgary. But Bret didn't want to lose in his home town, especially not to Shawn Michaels, because this was when Shawn Michaels was being, well, Shawn. But yeah, so Bret didn't want to lose in his hometown, or home country and everything, but pretty much the home field. Bret didn't want to lose in the home field, so he agreed that beat Shawn here, drop the title the next night on Raw. And then Bret Hart would be off to WCW. But instead, this went down, and people were confused. And this is even still up for debate to this very day. Was this a shoot? Was this a work? There's kind of credence to both. the shoot elements of pretty much Bret's reaction, the fact that Shawn hurried up and got out of there, or that leads credence to the shoot element, and the fact that Bret Hart really was going to be gone after this. But the elements that were kind of more in work nature was the fact that they acknowledged it on commentary, and the part that also showed is the fact that they hurried up and cut the feed. Like I mentioned, they were like, "Okay, thank you for watching Survivor Series, bye." But as for the parts that still work, them acknowledging it on commentary, like normally this type of stuff you wouldn't really acknowledge on commentary. You would kind of play along with it, or not mention it at all, and they did kind of try to tried to do both. I think it was Jerry Lawler who said Bret tapped. Meanwhile, Jim Ross saying no, he didn't tap. Kind of sweeping under the rug, but kind of not. Almost like a half-hearted attempt to sweep it under the rug, either acknowledging it, which kind of leads to the work nature, or even commentary being confused, not really being in the loop, not really knowing what's going on, and just like a lot of people didn't really know what was going on. But there is kind of elements to both. So that's essentially what happened. Bret Hart was gone. He'd be in WCW, wouldn't be back in WWE until 2010, and he buried the hatchet, and he buried the hatchet with Shawn, buried the hatchet with Vince. He actually buried the hatchet with Vince years prior, which led to Bret Hart being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I believe he was inducted in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, but this incident did draw a lot of controversy, which led to the creation of the Vince McMahon character. Yes, the Vince McMahon character was really birthed from this moment. And Vince McMahon himself became a major heel. He did the promos afterwards saying, Vince didn't screw Bret, WWF didn't screw Bret, Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. Really becoming more of a character, of course becoming the Vince McMahon / Mr. McMahon character that we all know today, and somewhat love and somewhat loathe, because some of that was in kayfabe, but there was some also real life implications when it comes to the characters, or that's sometimes how Vince McMahon truly is at times. But this really began the character, and of course, every good hero needs a good villain, and vice versa. So Vince McMahon was the major villain to the next rising up and coming star in the WWF, that being Stone Cold Steve Austin. And so this really began the feud, the Austin McMahon feud, which is kind of ironic considering Austin was one of the people that Bret Hart feuded against. In fact, one of people's favorite rivalries, that being Steve Austin versus Bret Hart. But this began that character, and as they say, the rest is history, which is kind of why we're here, because the rest truly is history. But this also really brought this feud, and this moment really put the Attitude Era into full swing, into full tilt. And so people have been debating, was this a necessary evil? Was this truly necessary for the wrestling business? Was this overall good for the wrestling business, or could this been handled differently? And the answer is not quite as black and white as it seems. There, believe it or not, there is a bit of a gray area, and I'm going to explain why. So on one hand, there are a lot of people who were upset by this, Bret Hart being one of them, really upset by everything that went down. Bret Hart got screwed out of the championship. Bret Hart was essentially lied to, and it caused a lot of bitterness and resentment towards Bret Hart. And sadly, Bret Hart is a man who's gone through a lot, not just this, but then the passing of his brother, or as well as his other families, such as his two brothers-in-laws and his friend Brian Pillman, and plus the fact that WCW turns out really didn't know what to do with Bret Hart, and he kind of was squandered in WCW for the most part. And a lot of that stems from here, at least kind of the catalyst, kind of the trajectory, if you will, if that makes any sense. But that's why a lot of people are kind of upset by this, what happened, saying this was bad, like they did Bret Hart dirty, which to be fair, yes, they kind of did it. But at the same time, without this moment, without this controversy, without all these eyes on WWF, now WWE obviously, but WWF at the time, without this controversy, without this moment, the historical significance of this moment, the Vince McMahon character being birthed, to battle Stone Cold Steve Austin, and to see what happens with the wrestling business and with WWF, and to an extent WCW after this. Would the wrestling business, as we know it, even exist if not for this moment? And the moment that really brought the Attitude Era into full swing, where WWE really started fighting back against WCW, a moment that lives on in both history and infamy. Would that all have happened? Would that all have occurred? Or I should say, would the wrestling business as we know it exist without this moment? And as we know it today, the big industry that it is granted, wrestling did kind of fall off for a bit. Especially in the wake of the buyout of WCW and ECW, and then of course WWE going into the PG era and everything, and wrestling not being as big as it used to be. But now they're slowly starting to come back, especially now with Triple H at the helm, and with guys like Roman Reigns on top of the mountain and stuff like that. Would any of that happen? Would any of that have been possible without this moment? And the answer, I don't think so. This big stir, this big moment, the beginning of the Vince McMahon character being birthed out of this moment, ultimately, you think is what truly kick-started the wrestling business, the next big wrestling boom, stuff like that. All of that stems from this moment. And of course, there's other things. The Attitude Era was kind of in its primordial stage, like they were really shedding off some of the skin of like the new generation, and but this is really what sent it into full tilt, full speed ahead towards the Attitude Era was this moment. And because of that, and feel how you want about the moment itself, of how Bret Hart got screwed, but I think in the end, and the ends do justify the means, and kind of a necessary evil, if you will, stemming from this moment. But that's one of the reasons why this moment, I think, is so fascinating to talk about, why this match is so fascinating to talk about, because of that said historical significance. But nevertheless, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Excuse me. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on the match and my review of the match. And of course, did you dislike the match? Did you like my review of the match? Let me know. But also, let me know your reaction to what I talked about and the historical significance of this match. Do you think the wrestling business as we know it, would have existed, or at the very least be vastly different, if not for this moment? Let me know. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.